Meet my new friend Cam. Cam, originally from England, went on a vacation to the Philippines earlier this year. What started as a spontaneous trip turned into a life-changing journey and a decision to relocate to the Philippines. Cam now makes content about his experiences in the Philippines, so make sure to check it out. Link below. In our conversation, Cam and I explored a wide range of topics, including his recent engagement, the transformative year he's experienced, the resilience of the Filipino people, and the wisdom he's gained from them, and so much more. I hope you guys enjoy the video. So you're from England. What part of England are you from?
I'm from Leicester, so somewhere in the Midlands. So I don't know if you've heard of Manchester. It's sort of halfway between Manchester and London, just in the middle of the country.
So how long have you been in the Philippines for now?
It's coming up to 4 months now. So I think it's about 3.5 months I've been in the Philippines. The plan wasn't for that to happen. The plan wasn't for that to be the case at all. This trip for me was meant to be sort of an extended trip around Southeast Asia. I had the Philippines to start with, and then the idea was to go to Thailand and then maybe Japan, Vietnam, or just like an open journey to see how far my money could go and how long I could sort of stay out there. So I had a flight booked out of Iloilo to Thailand initially. And then day 3 of the trip, I meet the woman who's now my fiance and just sort of start this whirlwind journey of falling in love with the Philippines quite quickly and obviously falling in love with my beautiful fiance. And that sort of just led me to not get on the flight to Thailand and just keep on extending in the Philippines as of now.
For us English speakers, learning Tagalog can be a real challenge. Trust me, I've been there. That is exactly why I decided to create my beginner's Tagalog course. With over 10 years of experience speaking Tagalog, I made sure that each and every video lesson is jam-packed with only the most useful information. When it comes to this course, the only thing I regret is not having it when I first started learning Tagalog. Ready to learn? Click the first link in the video description below to get started. Now, back to the video. So the Philippines was your first stop in that Southeast Asia trip?
Yeah, exactly. I'm someone who became Christian last year. I had quite a big transformative experience in my life. And when I was planning this like Southeast Asia adventure, I was thinking, oh, where's a good place to start? And when I was looking, the Philippines wasn't even on my list for a long time. And then about 2 weeks before I booked my flight, I saw a video pop up on YouTube like, out of nowhere. It was like, this is the most beautiful place on earth. And that sent me down this like rabbit hole of just watching travel vlogs of the Philippines. And the recurring theme in these videos was not just the beauty of the islands, which was just evident from the videos, but also people kept on speaking about the hospitality and the character of the people. Overwhelmingly, people were saying these are the friendliest, most accommodating people that they'd met. And this was from people who had traveled all over Asia and all over the world. So I thought, oh, there's probably something to that. I like the fact that, again, from someone who doesn't have experience from speaking other languages, people said that Filipinos speak English quite well. And also, as someone who had recently read the Bible, noting that the Philippines stands out in Asia as being a heavily Christian country, I was thinking, well, this place looks beautiful visually. The people sound incredible. And maybe when I'm there, I can sort of increase the understanding of my own faith. So it ticked all the boxes for the first place to visit on the journey.
That's pretty cool, though. It sounds like you did your research, like you were really looking into it.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I used to be an atheist. I used to be someone who suffered with anxiety quite a lot. And I used to try and micromanage details of plans like that. I would do so much research, try and investigate every possible thing that I could do, get a really detailed itinerary. But this time, for the first time, once I had that sort of strong feeling in my heart about the Philippines, I sort of, do you know when you watch a film and you see a trailer for it? And when you watch the trailer, it sort of ruined a lot of the film for you. With the Philippines, once I'd had it set in my heart that it ticked all those boxes that I mentioned, I sort of stopped doing more research then, because I was like, I'm going to go to this place. And I want to have the natural experience of seeing all these things for the first time when I'm there.
You didn't want to spoil it for yourself.
Exactly. I sort of, in my heart, sort of trusting God that this is where I'm meant to be going and let's see what happens. By doing that, it sort of created this sense of adventure with everything. So then obviously meeting my fiance day 3, and then everything that's happened since then, it's been everything that I was praying for and more. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations on your engagement. That's really exciting.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
So you guys
I'm
moved
very
pretty
happy.
quick then, if you've only been there for 3.5 months.
Yeah, 3.5 months. Yeah, I think definitely conversations I have with people back home, I think they're just very surprised at everything that's happened in my life, not just with the engagement, just going to the Philippines, quitting my job, and coming out on this adventure was one thing. And then obviously becoming Christian, started going to church, got baptized, got engaged. It's been a lot of things have been crammed into this Filipino adventure so far. And hopefully there's still more to come.
And where are you in the Philippines?
We're in Batangas province. There's a city called Tanawan. We just around that area. That's where I've spent the majority of my time. In terms of where I visited initially, as I say, the plan wasn't well structured at all. I flew into Manila, had a hostel booked for the first, I think, 3 or 4 nights just in Manila. And then when I got there, having conversations with people who had been to the Philippines multiple times, they gave me a list of places that they suggested I visited. And the first one was Bohol. So I booked a flight from Bohol out of Manila and then stayed there for about a week or so. Then from Bohol, went and visited Siquijor, then Dumaguete, and then returned to Manila to meet back up with my fiance, and then visited La Union. But the majority of time has been spent in Batangas, sort of living in the province life. Sort of the main thing that I've done is go to church and sort of just live with Filipino people rather than, I haven't been to Siargao or El Nido. So there's still a lot of places that I'd love to visit, but yeah, that's where I've spent most of my time.
And is your fiance from Batangas? Is that how you ended up there?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the provincial life is cool. I talk a lot about my experience in the Philippines. I mean, it's quite limited. I was just there on one trip for 3 weeks, but I noticed the contrast a lot between being in the city, like being in the hustle bustle of Manila, and then getting out and being in the more provincial regions. And so there's something that feels really genuine and authentic about being in the more rural areas of the Philippines. I appreciate the simple way of life as well, the slower pace, because Manila is chaotic. You know, there's a lot going on there.
I'm in Manila now, and I was having conversations about this exact thing yesterday, where as someone, as I say, in England, I live not in a major city. I live in like a village, and the nearest cities to me are like 20-minute drive away. So I have the feel that I'm much more comfortable in the provinces. Manila's cool. I've enjoyed visiting Manila, but definitely for me, hopefully someone who can live in the Philippines in future, I think I'd much prefer to live in the provinces, or Bohol's a beautiful place. I think it ticks a lot of boxes, like the island sort of lifestyle, but I definitely agree with you there, brother.
I was also there for a few days. That was probably my most, like authentic experience with a provincial lifestyle. Because I went to like Cavite and I went to Cebu, but like those are, like Cavite is like debated on if it's like provincial or not because it's so close to the city. And Cebu is very, it's a metropolitan area, so that didn't really count. Even though we went on a bit of a road trip to the kind of the outskirts of the city, I think it's still counted as the city proper. But when I was in Bohol, that's where it really felt like I'm in nature here, like very simple living and, like people outside enjoying life and, dogs sleeping on the road. And it felt like super rural. And I liked it. It was refreshing.
Yeah, no, I feel very similar. I was very shocked by the amount of dogs. Like that's just not something that we have in England, like stray dogs or dogs on the street or anything like that. So as someone who, as I say, this is my first time in Asia, there was a lot of shock to the system, but I completely agree with you there. I think I've experienced really nice hospitality within Manila. Like people are still very genuine people, I think, everywhere I've been in the Philippines. But in terms of that openness to accept people into their homes, I think in the provinces, that was just a massive thing that stood out for me initially and was probably one of, if not the main factor that made me fall in love with the Philippines in general, where people would just almost invite you into their lives without knowing you. At first I thought, maybe it's because I'm a foreigner that maybe part of me is getting like special treatment or something along those lines. But seeing how the communities interact with one another, just Filipinos with Filipinos, and seeing how they care for one another, how they look after one another, it really opened my eyes to, I don't know if maybe Canada might be similar. I think in the West, in more individualistic countries, there seems to have been a move away from those caring, sort of nurturing values of society, where people are much more isolated, people feel much more lonely, and I think with what's happening with like mental health across Western nations, I think seeing in the Philippines where people may have materially less, the actual feelings of love and community and sort of looking after one another has been so much richer here than my experience in the UK, that it sort of shone a lot of light on what truly matters in life. I think the level of like purpose in their lives and how content they are in the Philippines surpasses my experience in England by a big amount. And I think it's given me a lot of things to think about what's actually truly important in life. So I'm very grateful to the people of the Philippines for sort of just being themselves and shining light on that for me.
So like, would you say that that's the biggest difference between your life in England and your life in the Philippines, or what are some other differences?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I've gone a lot over in my own head about what are the biggest differences, because sort of like happiness, gratefulness, how content people are overall, those are the things that really stand out to me. And I was thinking, like, why is this? Like, what is the actual core thing that determines like such a big difference, I think, in happiness overall and sort of purpose in people's lives? And to me, I think the emphasis on God and community within the Philippines is such a big difference. In the Bible, Jesus says that the main things to focus on are to love God and to love one another. And I think those two things sum up everything that I've experienced in the Philippines. People genuinely love each other here. So that goes to how accommodating they are to strangers, how they care for each other like relatives, friends, the level of relationship people have, like the community aspect of the Philippines that we've already spoke about. And then to me, one of the biggest things that shocked me straight away and for the good was just how big a factor of everyday life the love of God is in the Philippines compared to the UK. On the back of jeepneys, Bible verses, or in God we trust everywhere, the amount of sort of Catholic influence on art around the city, around the country, was something that I really noticed, especially like in Manila, just walking around initially. And as someone who's been attending church for the first time in the Philippines, I think that has a big impact on society as a whole. But I would say probably those two things, that people love God openly and people love each other, are the two biggest things that I think they affect so many of the other differences that I've noticed as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're kind of getting at the core of what you're noticing there.
I think one word that kept coming up with conversations I had with Filipinos was resilience, where with like hardships that Filipinos go through or have been through throughout history, they've had to rely on each other in a sense that those community relationships and bonds have been strengthened throughout these times of hardship. Maybe with a lack of material resources, people have had to rely on each other much more so than in maybe Western countries where there's more of an emphasis on the individual. So I think I found it, I think, partly humbling, but also, as I say, it's more eye-opening, where I've realized that maybe in the West, there's such a focus on the rat race. Like we want to be on that grind. We want to get, once I hit this next like monetary goal, I'll be happy. And maybe this next promotion, then I'll be happy. But coming to the Philippines and seeing the overwhelming level of contentment, where the number one focus day to day for a lot of people isn't the next monetary goal. It's like, oh, how can I care for my family? Like fundamentally, how can I be a good contributing member of my local community? It's almost been like, I'm envious of that for my own country. So yeah, definitely.
And the Philippines has, a long history with overseas foreign workers as well. They go abroad and work all over the place. I mean, that's how I became acquainted with the Filipino culture, was through Filipino people right here in my own country, in Canada, right? And so you also see that resilience in them. Now they've moved from the Philippines to a new place with a new culture, sometimes with a new language, and they just go to work. They just do it, and it doesn't matter if it's minus 40 here in Canada. They're still going to their job like anyone else, and they're not complaining about it. They're just very resilient people, and oftentimes working many more hours than your average Canadian would as well, because they're not just paying their bills here in Canada, which, I mean, we have a higher cost of living as well with rent and food and everything else, but also sending money back home to their families, because for a lot of them, that was the point from the beginning, was to support their families, right? And oftentimes bringing people out of poverty back home in the Philippines. And so, they're working for, not just their own expenses, but the expenses of who knows how many people back home. And so that's another thing that speaks to the resilience of the Filipino people and their hardworking nature as well. It's very commendable. From the first time I met Filipinos, which actually was at a workplace, they were my coworkers, I was just blown away by their work ethic. I was like, wow. I remember working with one guy and I was working, I think, full time at that point. So it's, 40 hours a week, an 8-hour day. He would work his 8 hours and then he would get off work and go to a different job for another 8 hours. He'd work 16 hours a day and it was like nothing to him. And I just couldn't wrap my head around why you would do that. And now as I've learned more and more about the Philippines, I go, wow, he's got some needs back home. He's got people that depend on him. And so, he just does it. It's crazy.
It's completely spot on. And that mirrors my own experience as well, where it's like entrepreneurial mindset, but the amount of people that have like a side hustle or multiple jobs, like yourself, my response to that was like, wow, a lot of shock and inspiration, because my first response was like, oh, you're not really tired? Are you not, when do you sleep? You're doing like two to three jobs people are working to provide for their families and to try and build a better future. And from what I've heard as well from the Filipino workers who go abroad, one of the biggest industries that they go to is caregiving. So Western countries see the Filipino workers as people who will work hard with a positive disposition, like almost ideal caregivers. And yeah, I find it very inspiring seeing people taking that leap to go to another country, like you said, and with the aim of bettering not just their own position themselves, but to send money back to their families. I think there's been a lot of that feeling with me of like being genuinely inspired, of seeing people in situations where in the past I might have thought, with the focus with a Western mindset of, oh, this person must be struggling. If they're in this position, they must be having these thoughts of worry, stress, maybe like wishing their life were a different way. But that's not been my experience at all. That emphasis on being grateful, making the most of the position you find yourself in, but whilst also being like a beacon of light, where every foreigner that I've spoken to that has dealt with Filipinos has had this exact experience where they've been inspired, where they've seen like, if Filipino people are in a position like this and they're doing this with their life, then it's motivated me to see the positive side of situations I find myself in, maybe motivated me to improve my own work ethic and make more of the situations that I find myself in. So already very grateful personally to have sort of been influenced by Filipino culture in the 3.5 months that I've been here already.
So how was it for you when you first arrived? Did it take some time to adjust to a new way of life? Was there any culture shock for you?
I think to offer sort of like something that I missed initially was getting used to not having a hot shower. That was probably a big culture shock for me. The food was great. The food I was sort of nervous about, didn't really do much research. I heard that Filipinos love eating rice and maybe fried food they really like. That's what I'd heard before coming here. But I've really enjoyed the food, and there weren't really any negative culture shocks, which I was very grateful for.
Do you have a favorite Filipino dish?
See, the boring answer to that is like sisig and adobo. I really do love sisig, like pork sisig.
Me too.
I think that's probably my favorite. I've been trying more of the lesser known or lesser tried dishes. I was actually surprised by dinuguan, the blood sort of stew. I actually really like that. I'm not a massive fan of blood or like unusual food. So like chicken feet and some of the things on like street food, Filipino barbecues, like isaw. I was quite nervous to try those sort of foods, but overwhelmingly, I've been pleasantly surprised by the foods. And I think that's another thing. Like, I think seeing how little of the animals is wasted, like going to the wet markets in the Philippines and just seeing just the sheer amount of the animals that are used for different foods, going to the barbecues, seeing all the different types of food. That was amazing, just to see the lack of waste. The one food that I have tried that I didn't really enjoy, but I might try again, was balut.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I think mentally seeing the actual chick's face looking up at you as you're about to eat it, for me, mentally, isn't something that I've had much practice on in England at all. We don't, as far as I know, we don't have a food like that. But I have been receiving a lot of comments on my videos to say that I need to try balut again. So maybe I will.
That one is challenging. I mean, there is a mental kind of challenge at play, even with stuff like isaw and dinuguan, but it's not too much of a hurdle to get over because it also just looks like food. You know, dinuguan just looks like a stew and isaw just looks like some chicken or something like that, more or less. But the balut, I mean, you can really tell that it's something unique. I've eaten it a few times. Yeah, it hasn't been easy for me either. I did a video as well on my channel of me trying that in Manila. It was challenging for sure. That one's tricky.
I think that's definitely true. Like the chicken feet and isaw, if you eat chicken wings, chicken breast, chicken thighs all the time, and in England, I don't really want to know what part of the animal is in a sausage. But I don't really do my own research because I like the idea very much so that you go to the supermarket, you buy a sausage, and in my head, before coming here, the idea was, oh, that's just a sausage. I don't really ask too many questions, but seeing Esau and being like, oh, what's that? And it's like, oh, the intestine. It's like, oh. It is just a small mental hurdle to get over where if I'm eating a chicken, why is the chicken foot worse? But
right.
That's just in my head. It's just in my head. So I think that's been good to get over that.
You've had
chicken feet.
Yeah. I found that the chicken feet taste like chicken wings, kind of. It's kind of in a similar vein.
I think initially I was really nervous to try it because of that mental block. But once I started eating it, I was finding myself disappointed that there wasn't more meat in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted more of it. It's almost like a snack, like just a delicacy almost, rather than a filling meal. You'd think you'd have to eat a lot of chicken feet to be full.
Oh yeah, because I bought it kind of at like the supper hour, thinking it would be a meal, and it definitely wasn't. Like after I ate a bunch of chicken feet, I was like, okay, now I need to actually eat after this because it's like a chicken wing, but like with half the meat, or maybe even less, a third of the meat. Yeah. Is there any like specialty dishes in Batangas that they eat there?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think lomi, actually. Lomi is a dish that I think in Batangas province, they're like, I don't know if it's in other parts of the Philippines, but there's a heavy emphasis on lomi in Batangas.
That's like a pork dish, right?
Yeah, it's got like a lot of noodles, a sauce, meats on top. Pares as well, like an overload of pares. That was something that was really nice.
Beef pares?
Yeah, where they just seem to throw a lot of different things in a bowl, and it's good. It tastes good. It's sobrang masarap.
Sobrang masarap. There you go. Magaling. Yeah. You mentioned that you're on your journey now to learn Tagalog. I'm assuming that that's the first language of your fiance as well. Is that what she speaks with her family?
Yes, but thankfully she's very fluent in English. I think for her job that she's had in the past, she's had to speak English as part of them. So there isn't sort of any sort of language barrier. Initially, when I was still in my first month in the Philippines, I was thinking, well, I'm going to Thailand next month, so I don't really have time to sort of learn Tagalog. I'll learn the basics that I can sort of ask for things or like say thank you. But I didn't really have that like deep desire or need to learn more of the language. But obviously with my fiance and like my life now, looking to at least having a heavy Filipino influence in it for hopefully forever now, there seems like a big drive in me to learn the language. I would love to understand every word that everyone's saying at all times. And sometimes if you don't understand, you can feel slightly left out or you want to join in with the conversations. I'm very conscious that I'm being a slow learner with it, but I think I'm trying to have patience with myself because I'm experiencing all these new things, whether it's the food, the culture, my own faith, my relationship. It's like Tagalog is increasing in its priority in my list, but it's taken some time.
It's okay to be a slow learner with a language, though. I mean, everybody is. It really is a marathon. It's not a sprint, you know, like nobody can just learn a language in a month. You got to take your time with it. It does take time. It's a big thing. It's a big undertaking. You know, you do a little bit every day and you'll get there for sure. 100%. You can do it.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. I'll watch some more of your videos for some tips, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah. Check them out.
I think that's a good piece of advice you said of like, it's a marathon, not a sprint, where I was like, right, I'm going to just sit here for 6 hours today and I'm going to learn so much Tagalog. And then like you go to sleep, you wake up and you're like, salamat pa? I think like trying to just focus on maybe like 1 to 2 words a day and just using, if you know the Tagalog word for something, in my own head, if I'm using it in a context, if I'm saying that word, try and use the Tagalog for it. And that just creates the pattern in my own head. So that is helping me.
It's unique in the Philippines as well because you can just kind of inject Tagalog words into your English, right? That's where Taglish comes from.
I'm very happy with that.
Like a lot of languages in the world have adopted English words, you know, like people will use, you know, Englishisms all over the place, but it's not the same where it's like you have a sentence that could be half English and half German or half English and half French. Like it doesn't happen in the same way. And so with Tagalog, you can start with Taglish and do like 90% English, 10% Tagalog, and then just add 5% and then add 5. You could do it that way, which is, yeah, it's a unique opportunity in the Philippines.
It sort of brings the barrier down to how much of the language you need to know in order to have an effective conversation. And that's definitely helped me for understanding what people are speaking about. If even 80% or 90% of the conversation is Tagalog, but I've heard 10% in English, I at least can understand roughly what the conversation might be about. So yeah, that's definitely helped me. I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and I think that we also have, or I had the assumption anyway, that to learn to speak Tagalog, you need to speak 100% Tagalog. And that just isn't the truth either. I mean, you can see that with Filipino people in the Philippines, even when they're talking to each other. There's a good percentage of English words being used. And so, especially at the beginning, I really tried to speak like 100% Tagalog. They call it like purong Tagalog, 100% just straight Tagalog. And, I thought I was doing a good thing. And then I realized that I was the only one doing that and that, Filipinos don't speak like that. And it was actually a little bit unnatural. And so sometimes I struggle with knowing which words to say in which language so that I can sound natural without sounding too robotic or kind of like academic or something, I want to sound like Filipino sound.
That's a nice problem to have though, brother, that you're almost too fluent in Tagalog, that you sound too formal.
No, I wouldn't say I'm too fluent. There's lots of other words that I don't know. I remember at the beginning, because I had a girlfriend from the Philippines. I remember asking her all the time, like if I was going to learn a new word, I would say like, I want to learn this word. Is this a word that people actually use? Or is there a better version that I could, substitute? And then she would tell me. And so sometimes I would bring a word to her and say, I'm going to learn this. I think it means this. And she would be like, don't use that one. use the English one. Or sometimes there's a simpler, more colloquial, like kind of slang version in Tagalog that people would actually use. And so you have to be careful with Tagalog because it doesn't have the same resources that other languages do. Sometimes you got to ask around as opposed to assuming what words are the right ones to learn even,
You're streamlining your learning, maximizing the efficiency and the applicability. Yeah,
so
like that.
I'd recommend that anyway. I think that's probably a good way to go about it. I'm sure that we've already talked about a few of these things, but if you could kind of distill it down, what do you think like your favorite thing about Filipino culture is?
I think the community aspect and the emphasis on loving one another and being grateful for the life people have. I think those are my favorite things, where people wake up and they thank God for being alive. When you're doing that on a regular basis, all of the other things that happen in the day are sort of like the cherry, various levels of cherry on top of the cake. Like just your existence each day, you are grateful for. So if you extend that to you're grateful for your family, you're grateful for the friends you have, you're grateful for the job you have, you're grateful for the opportunities that you have in life. I think when people feel that in a much more prevalent way, I think that bleeds out to every interaction they have with each other, whether it's with foreigners or with other Filipinos. So I think that emphasis on positivity, gratefulness, community, and giving thanks to God overwhelmingly, I think those are my favorite things about Filipino culture. The weather helps, the food is good. These are all things that I would give advice to people to, even if they wanted just to visit the Philippines. But what I would say about the Philippines from my own experience and from having conversations with other people, other foreigners, is that come to the Philippines, but be prepared that it could change your life forever in whatever way.